December over the break. And I'd like to start with current data that we have to go off of. And this is some trend data since we met in December. And what I can say about this is it's not going in the right direction due to the Omicron variant that is now very present in our community. If you look at the first bullet there, current case rate per 100,000 is at 358.19. In comparison, on December 10th, it was at 177. And I think the lowest we got at the end of the Delta was about, I think it was right around 140 is the lowest we got at any point in the fall. One thing to point out also, about 95, this is nationally, about 95% of the current cases are the Omicron variant that we're seeing now, and it's not really the Delta anymore. Positivity rates, the second bullet, we've seen an increase from 8.74 to what currently, as of Friday, was 24.83. And then as a district, we don't have a lot of data yet as we are coming back. But what we can tell you is today, we had a 53.9% fill rate. In comparison, throughout the fall, we averaged about 71.4%. That includes both certified and classified.
Now, when you say fill rate, is that substitute fill rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. The number 295, as far as absences, for a variety of reasons, some of it illness, some of it personal days, that is not abnormal. When you compare it to a couple days that we had in September and October, it is actually lower. The real issue is the fill rate. And so today we used a number of district service center staff members to go out and cover sub jobs. So, and everything, as far as we know, everyone had a great first day back, but that's just something to be aware of. So any questions on the data? Good. So if we go to the next
hold on
slide.
one second. Trustee Oppenheimer.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a, thank you, President Waitress. I'm not sure if it's a question more than anything, but that 53% fill rate is very concerning. And I know that you don't have a crystal ball, none of us do, but you know what? I don't even know what to ask. Like, but I'm just very concerned about that fill rate because if we don't have substitutes, I mean, is there anything the community can do? Does the governor still have his project where he's incentivizing community members to be substitutes? And is that still happening? Is that working or no? Apparently not.
President Wagers, if I could answer that.
Sure.
A couple of different things, Trustee Oppenheimer. I think we need to be careful. First day back from a vacation. We need to get a little bit more data. We agree the 53.9 is a little bit concerning to us. I think one of the things that we have been hearing from at a national level is that the Omicron virus variant is much more about workplace and worker issues than it is about hospitalizations and those kinds of things. And I think what we're seeing, I know that McCall Donnelly today had to shut down for 2 days. We're hearing some concerning numbers across the valley for districts that have already been in school. So we're concerned about where we are. But I want to be a little bit careful about the 53.9 only because it's just 1 day and it's right after a vacation. Hopefully we'll see some of those numbers pop up a little bit. But this is the exact reason why we ended up having to shut down back in November of 2020, if I remember right, was because of the operational issues, much more than the case counts. So this is concerning to us as well.
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, the thing I would add, our winter break ended after many of the other districts had already gone back to school. So one of the factors could be individuals that substitute in multiple districts may have already been plugged in to substitute jobs. So we'll, like Superintendent Dennis said, we just need to keep monitoring this each day. And we have plans in place throughout the week to provide that support as we navigate our way through it. So next slide. So Omicron impact on school districts across America is, as Superintendent Dennis mentioned, it's creating major operational issues for schools from a staffing standpoint as people are getting sick and as rapidly as this is spreading. And what we're seeing nationally, there's really two different approaches that are happening. Some districts are choosing to temporarily go remote, move to remote learning, and other districts are choosing to stay in person and are trying to meet the operational challenges that it is presenting. So next slide. So in the Boise School District, we have been reviewing our plans and looking at our protocols, the way, I mean, starting with our goal, if we're to see an outbreak occur in the Boise School District, the way we would approach that is, number one, our goal is to minimize the impact to as many families as possible. Our goal is to stay in person 5 days a week. It has been from the very beginning, still is today. And the way we would look at that is we would go through a progression of looking first at the classroom level, then at a school level. And then the third one here, grade bands, because we're talking about human resource and being able to have enough substitutes to cover classrooms. Potentially, if it was severe enough, we could potentially look at moving a grade band, like the example here, taking our high schools and moving them to remote learning. And the advantage of that, it frees up resources that can be redistributed to the rest of the district. And then the high school students would participate in remote learning temporarily during that time. So that it could start with the high schools, you could expand that with the junior highs also. I think as we walked through it, the last group that we would probably touch in this would be the elementary, that we would want to protect that being in person if it got severe enough. Now, the last option would be, as a district, like what happened in November of 2021, would be to move the entire district to remote learning if it was severe enough. But that is a last resort for us in the way we're approaching it. Any questions?
Trustee Schmidt?
Thanks, President Wagers. Maybe you could help me understand how moving to remote learning helps ease a resource constraint when it's teaching as the resource constraint.
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, the way that would work is at the high school level, the teachers would continue to teach their classes remotely. The classified employees then could be redistributed that we have in our high schools, which are our largest schools. I think we have about 6,500 students. And our resource of classified employees, we have probably in our schools, our largest workforce of classified employees. And also, like your food service workers would be another example, custodials, staff, that they could be redistributed to other schools to help meet those needs and fill in as substitutes across the district.
Superintendent Dennis?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt. Yeah, so as Brian kind of talked through that a little bit, we would take all of those resources, transportation, food service, classroom aides, special ed folks, and redistribute them in order to cover the shortfalls in the junior high and the high schools. We wouldn't take that lightly, but given 53.9%, it may allow us to bridge that gap and not have to shut the entire district down, which is what we had to do back in November of 2020.
Trustee Langley, and then I'll.
So
I wanted to clarify two things, I guess. So what I'm hearing is that staffing is the focus that would be the reason we would move to any type of remote learning, even in these stair steps. Not really. I mean, we feel that we're following our guidance with quarantining, et cetera, to deal with the actual virus. It would be a staffing issue that would focus that.
President Wagers, trustee Langley, that is correct. It would be an operational issue, staffing for our district if we get to that.
Okay, and then my other question is just, can you go into a little bit more detail about why we would put the priority on the younger children?
President Wagers, if I could jump in there. The short answer is older kids are more apt to be able to function independently. When you have a kindergartner who you have to have an adult at home. So that would be the reason we would prioritize the upper grades going to a remote setting and the younger kids staying in person.
Makes good sense to me. Thanks.
Trustee Haas?
Director Walker, good evening.
Good evening.
So over the break, the CDC changed a little bit the guidelines on quarantining, as I understand, where you would have to quarantine for 5 days, and then 5 days you could, you're free to go as long as you mask. Has that been adopted at the school? How does that help, or as far as minimizing disruption, if at all, I guess?
So President Wagers and Trustee Haas, actually, if we go to the next slide, that's our next slide. Moving right into this.
That's an excellent
Good lead-in.
Okay.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
So recently, as many of you know, in late December, the CDC and Central District Health brought out new guidance around isolation and quarantine. And it changed. Prior to that, we were working off of 7, 10, and 14 were the proposed quarantine timeframe, where it could be 7 days if you tested, and then you could come back on day 8 once you had a negative test. They have changed that guidance and reduced it to 5 days. And then after 5 days, if you have no symptoms, you're asymptomatic, you can come back as long as you wear a mask for 5 days. And then when you get into exposures, one of the highlights with the exposures in the Central District Health guidelines is they have provided some options for reducing or eliminating quarantining. And one of those options, for example, is that if you're exposed and you wear a mask, you can come back to the educational setting and not have to quarantine if you wear a mask for 10 days, as long as you're asymptomatic. So we are adopting those new guidelines, and we actually today we met with our principals and our nurses and started walking through that. Lots of questions with the changes, a lot of what ifs of this situation, that situation. But the bottom line is, because we have universal masking, it puts us in a really good position to keep kids in school. And with the new guidance, I anticipate we should see a reduction in the quarantining that is needed in our district based on the new guidance. That we should be able to keep more kids in school more days than what we were before.
Follow-up question? President Wagers? Does it matter where the exposure occurred in school versus if it was an exposure outside of the school setting? Does that change anything?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Haas, there are some subtle differences if it's an exposure in the home versus exposure at school or out in public. But that's a piece, honestly, we're still working through. We just got this guidance, and that's a piece that actually today, when we're meeting with principals and nurses, and after the meeting reflected that we still have some more work on that, because we'd like it to be as consistent as possible, and where it's as simple as possible for everyone to understand what we're doing, and as we interpret that. So
Thanks.
President Wagers.
Superintendent Dennis?
I think the important part for the board to understand is the biggest change that has taken place with this new guidance is the previous guidance was much more exposure-driven response. So if you were exposed, then you do the following things. This guidance is much more symptom-driven response. And so if you're showing symptoms, then you. And so I think that's probably the biggest change between the guidance is a difference between exposure versus symptoms. And it's quite a flow chart when you start looking at it. It can get complicated pretty quickly, but I think we have the ability, and I think this will be very helpful in being able to keep kids in school and staff in school. So we're excited about it, even though it's going to come with some questions at the beginning.
Do we have a hope of when you can implement that? I mean, I know that because we just started school back. So
Yep.
I mean, I get there takes some time to make that happen and get everybody on board, but is there a hope when we could get that implemented?
President Wagers, it started today. We will work through some of the questions that are happening. But as far as the guidance goes, we have got that guidance out to principals and nurses, and they will start implementing it ASAP. That will lead to some questions as we work through the subtleties of this. But I think we're ready to roll on it.
Great. And kind of a follow-up to that one, do we believe that we have enough testing capability to handle what may happen?
President Wagers, yes, that's an area also that we are continuing to develop. We've already, as we've shared before, we have some clinics that are set up throughout the district, and also with partnerships with Boise State. We are also in the process of getting, I think we're going to have about 10,000 tests, rapid tests, antigen tests, that we're working on developing a procedure where we can, with consent from families, be able to test at school to provide that at our schools. So that's something we're working on, spent all day on it today, and we're going to be working as quickly as we can to get those. We have them in our warehouse. They showed up right before the break, and we're working on getting those distributed out to schools and getting procedure in place.
Great. Thank you. It's impressive that we got them in already.
Yeah.
That's nice.
One other thing I wanted to point out on this slide, number 4, contact tracing. Contact tracing prior to this new guidance has been very cumbersome for our schools. And one of the nice things is we're going to see, this is going to help us in contact tracing because we're going to have environments within a school that we are no longer going to have to do contact tracing. For example, if there was a positive case in a classroom, before we would be contact tracing each of those individual classrooms. Now with the universal masking, we will not have to contact trace in that environment. It would be more the settings like at lunchtime where you sitting within, for more than 15 minutes where your masks were off, or say in an athletic team where you in practice where you had exposure for more than 15 minutes in those situations. But even in those situations, with the quarantining and the new guidance from Central District Health is as long as they wear a mask for 10 days and they're asymptomatic, they can continue to access their education at school until that time period's up.
Any other questions on this slide? Okay.
All right, next slide. So the last thing here is, as we talked back in December, we were going to begin the process and putting a group together to start shifting, moving into the development of an endemic plan for our district as we move forward, knowing that COVID is going to be around for the long term. And we have meetings set up for this month. We have that committee put together. It consists of parents, students, nurses, BEA, building administrators, F&O, and district administration. And we look forward to providing you an update on the work of that group in February. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you, President Wagers. Director Walker, I love that you have a whole group of folks represented here on that committee. How did you recruit the parents and the students to participate? We checked with our principals and a lot of times what we do is we work with our principals to identify good candidates to be part of that committee. And so
we work with the local schools and we try to balance it so we have even representation from each of our quads when we form the committee. One other thing I'd want to point out is we have that committee, but we are also additionally, in addition to that, we are taking the time, I just want everyone to know, we are taking the time to meet with other stakeholders that have interest when they have reached out to us. And we're also getting input from other people that have an interest in that, other stakeholders that may not be part of that committee.
Trustee Langley.
Director Walker, I wonder if you might just, we've gotten a lot of emails, just starting to get our emails back again. And I noticed a theme in some of the emails. I'm so grateful that our patrons are reaching out to us and just giving us their thoughts. But no matter where they land on the issue, I think that there's some unawareness of our website that gives them access to our COVID policies and like how we make decisions around COVID. So would you mind talking a little bit about where they can find that information?
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, yes. We post everything on our website. We have a link directly to COVID-19. And when you click on that, I think it's on the top menu. It will take you to all of the resources from the very beginning. We put all of our stuff on there. So anyone at any time can access our current plans, our updates to the board throughout the last couple of years. And all of that is readily available to the patrons at any time. And if I would say this too, is if patrons are wanting to access that stuff or need help with that, they can contact their local principal. They can also contact us, the area directors, and we will happily guide them to all those resources.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from trustees on the endemic planning slide? No. Trustee Schmidt.
Thanks, President Wagers. Director Walker, just in light of the updated guidance, does that change any of the initial planning that you've done in this long-term endemic planning, or is the committee just been formed and you haven't started driving towards those developments yet?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, prior to the winter break, our focus, we had a short time frame and our focus was getting the committee identified and put together. So we got that objective accomplished before the break, and we have a pretty aggressive timeline that we're working with, where we have meetings set up this week, and then in two weeks from now we have meetings, and out of those we're also going to be forming some subcommittees to work on different aspects of this, and so we're just getting started.
Okay. As a follow-up, then, understanding the timeline is short, we talked about in December coming in at the February board meeting with the recommendation. Do you think that that's a realistic target, or what are you seeing?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, right now, our timeline, I feel very confident we'll be able to do that. If something comes up where we need more time, we will let all of you know. But I feel good about the system we have in place for our committee and how we're going to do the work. All the directors are taking roles in those subcommittees to ensure we get the work done that needs to be done. And they're going to, each of the directors are facilitating those subcommittees. They'll include members from the bigger committee.
Superintendent Dennis.
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, not to repeat what Brian just said, but I think that if we find ourselves in a position where we're not ready yet, we will come back to the trustees in the February board meeting with an update as to where we are and a plan for whether we need to call a special meeting prior to the March timeframe. So I do think we'll be able to get something to the board in February.
I appreciate that. I just, as was mentioned, we're receiving a lot of email from a lot of people that are concerned on both sides of the issue, and understand that you're absolutely working towards a clear direction. We're trying to do what's in the best interest of the kids. I think it would be extremely disappointing to many of the parents in the district if we came back in February and said we need more time. So please understand that the
Mhm.
urgency and put the appropriate effort into that to do everything you can between now and then.
Yeah. President Wagers, trustee Schmidt, absolutely agree with you 100%.
Trustee Oppenheimer?
Thank you, President Wages. I just wanted to make a comment and say, you get news alerts on your phone and everything, and local school districts are preparing for the what ifs. And I just want to applaud you and, Superintendent Dennis and your team for putting this together. Seems like a much different conversation than we had back in November of 2020. And I really like the new protocols where we're looking at sort of that phased approach if that happens. Now, obviously, I think that we can all agree that we do not want to shut down schools at all costs. So, but having that phased in approach, I really like that. And just thinking through this, and I know that you guys are living and breathing this every day and trying to figure out what's happening. So I just want to say kudos to you guys it's the first day back at school and a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. And here you are with as much information and a plan as you can give us. So, and I'm confident that you'll hit that deadline because I know that you guys live and breathe this. So thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Director Walker. Appreciate that. With that, we will move on to the full day kindergarten proposal. And that's be Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
President Wagers, trustees, I will say that I get to present the fun stuff tonight. A little bit more fun than Director Walker's topic for sure. So as you all know, we took a pretty deep dive at one of our workshops on full day kindergarten in December, with the anticipation of coming back to all of you in January to ask for your consideration for us to move the school district to full day kindergarten this next coming school year. And whenever we do a project like this, we look at a big shift or a big change in the district, we always try and go back to what are our interests in that. And so our interests in shifting to a full day kindergarten program across the district would be to provide equitable and accessible full day kindergarten for all children in the Boise School District. We also would like to see the potential attraction of additional kindergarten age students into kindergarten versus first grade in our district. Currently, right now, we get a bump going from kindergarten to first grade because families have looked for a more consistent full day option for their students. And so a lot of them do like a private kindergarten or private childcare, combination. Also, we'd really love to see an increase in social and academic skills for all incoming first graders for the next year. Currently in our district, just as a reminder, we have 20 schools that offer a full day option. 2 schools offering a full day kindergarten we offer it fully funded. It's Taft and Jefferson Elementary. Those are both Title I schools. So we did that as kind of a pilot to see what that would look like, in the schools that where they couldn't afford the monthly fee. 18 of our schools are offering a full day kindergarten funded by a sliding scale. So $250 a month for most students, $150 for if they are on reduced lunch or $0 if they're on free lunch. Our current enrollment into full day is 553 students. 183 or 33% qualify for tuition-free full day kindergarten. That's a big shift over the last couple of years when we went to a sliding scale. Prior to having a sliding scale, we had very few students that were on free or reduced lunch that were in our full day kindergarten program. 40% of our current kindergarten population is enrolled in full day. Yeah, so in those 20 schools, because some of them have more than one program, we have 25 full day classrooms currently across the district. So our vision would be to have 100% pre-literacy and pre-numeracy skills for all students by first grade. Soft skills mastered for successful first grade experience, accessible for all students, equitable for all students. So full day kindergarten for all students, estimating 71 classes for the 2022-2023 school year. So I'm going to step back a little bit in the presentation and have you hear from one of our teachers that's moved from a half day to a full day program. because I think that what Amy Adams at Mountain View has to say will speak volumes as to why we're looking at this shift.
I think we want to send Amy down to the legislature.
Yes, 100%. She's amazing. Yeah, she is an amazing teacher. But in her passion, I think she just exudes the passion she has for kindergarten. This is just an example and to kind of show you, so just going from a half-day program to a full-day program, actually more than doubles the time students will have exposure to the curriculum. Because right now, in order to bus students in midday, we have to have an hour gap there. This way, they would only have a 40-minute lunch like most of the other students do. And so it would increase that time even more. It's just an example for you. So benefits to parents, students, and staff. So parents, the great part about that, and also for the students, is that lunch and breakfast would be available, both meals for the day. Less of a financial burden on families. More continuity in the child's day. So some of our kids do come and they have like morning kindergarten and then they transition again to childcare opportunity in the afternoon before going home. Consistent schedule with their siblings as well, because that's one thing that's really difficult for parents a lot of times if the students are just there half day, but they have an older sibling that's there full day. And a better support the schedule of working parents. That it's really difficult a lot of times because a lot of our families have been in a childcare setting or a preschool setting that's full day, and they come to kindergarten where it's a half day. So they're trying to figure out where will my child go in the morning if they don't have kindergarten, or in the afternoon. Students and teachers, increased instructional time, including time for intervention. More time to focus on activities, to reflect on activities and to transition between those. Supporting developmental science of the brain. Supports decreasing the language gap, so learning vocabulary and context. Narrows the poverty gap in vocabulary. There's that 30 million word gap that students who come from poverty have versus students that come from a language-rich household. So resources. We know that there is talk that the legislature might fund full-day kindergarten for this next year. Irregardless, that's what we're here today to ask for you to approve, is for us to move forward in planning, whether they fund it or if we need to find the funds for that. Space needed, we would need 14 new classrooms, so actual classroom space. And we've done an audit of our schools and we're feeling really positive about that space. Curriculum needs, there'd be some curriculum needs, not that much. Mostly it would be in teachers' additions. We would save $175,000 because we would not have the midday buses for kindergarten. We would still need them for pre-K, but not for kindergarten. We'd have an increase of 37 full-time educators. We think there could be a possible increase in PE and music staffing. Currently, we would have to double what kindergarten gets if we're doing doubling the classes. We feel, however, pretty strongly that down the road, we would see a decrease in special ed staffing because of getting the students at kindergarten. However, initially we might have an increase of a little bit of for special education staffing. Classroom set up for 14 additional classrooms. This is really exciting. We have had an amazing donation. So Idaho Community Foundation donation would take care of the setup, the one-time costs of setting up those extra classrooms. So all the furniture, equipment, those teachers' additions, the teacher technology device. And then we would see what we approximate to be about a $2.7 million increase to our budget by going full-time, a full day kindergarten across the district. So 37 FTE, and that would include 2 special education teachers. We're just guessing at that. We think that might even be more than what we would need. So if you had decided to approve this program, this plan tonight, we would start with a program information night, a webinar for parents. We'd ask parents, of course, to submit questions and answers so we could get that information out to them. And then we would start on staff training. So if you're a kindergarten teacher who's always done a half-day program and you're moving to a full-day program, I mean, it does take some training to figure out how best to use the curriculum time. So we would start working on staff training on the room setup, the daily schedule, and curriculum. So I am here this evening to ask your approval to move forward with planning to transition to a full-day program, kindergarten program next year. Stand for any questions.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you. This is very exciting. And I do have a few questions, if that's okay, President Wagers, and I apologize, I was not able to attend the workshop. So, but I'm sure if I have a question, others out there have the same questions too. My first question is, moving to full day, what do we do? And I know a lot of parents just want half day kindergarten for their children. And that's their choice to be able to do that. How would we manage that and what would that look like?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, that was one of our initial questions. And so we've reached out to the other districts. And there's quite a few other districts around the state, more than we were surprised at how many were doing it, that they only offered a full day option, and they brought parents in and educated them as to what that full day would look like. And that was what they transitioned to as a full day program. They didn't offer a half day option. However, all of our schools, and I even remember doing this as a principal, some kindergarten students, when they first start, they maybe only come for an hour that first week, that second week. And then a couple of weeks after that, you transition that up. And so we would work with our principals and of course the kindergarten teachers in doing some training in what the parents could expect. And we would work on an individual basis with those parents that were still looking for the half day.
Okay, so it would potentially be possible if those parents choose
Yes.
to only one third children. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. And of course, this is not mandatory, correct?
Kindergarten is not mandatory in the state of Idaho, so no, it would not be mandatory.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And then what are the ratios, our current ratios for kindergarten class? I can't remember. Is it 1 to 23?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, it's 1 to 23 right now, is what is in board policy.
Okay, and that will remain,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
Sorry for all the questions. And then hiring 37 full-time. Do you anticipate any challenges with fulfilling that
President Wagers?
hiring goal? That's a lot.
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer. Well, first off, our district is known for being a phenomenal district. So we have this amazing board. And so people always want to come and work in the Boise School District. But seriously, at the elementary level, our applicant pool is always very rich. So we do not anticipate a problem with that.
Great, great. And the other is, I loved, Amy Adams was fantastic, by the way. She was so good, and you're right, she should get on the legislature. And while we are hopeful that the staff will do something, I applaud the Boise School District and thank the Community Foundation and the donor that came forward with this, because it is time to move forward. And I do think that all of the support that we're providing, not only our children, but our families, who sometimes their lives are disrupted when they have kindergartners and have to go back and forth between childcare and who's picking who up, and it's tough. So I do applaud you for that. And I think, and it sounds like the logistics and everything you guys are figuring out, which is good. I love having the breakfast and lunch available for our students, because I know that that's a challenge for some of our younger students and families, is figuring out literally lunch.
Yes.
You go in the morning and then where are they going to get lunch? So that's fantastic. I love to hear that as well. So I don't know that I have any other questions at this point, but thank you for all of that, and I love it.
Anytime.
Now that Trustee Oppenheimer has asked all the questions, would anybody else like to ask a question? Trustee Greeley.
Thank you, President Wagers. It's not a question, but I don't know who wouldn't be excited after listening to Amy Adams talk about it. But I think one of the things that touched me the most in this is that this is going to be accessible and equitable for all students, and that I'm excited about the academic aspect. I'm excited about all the things that Trustee Oppenheimer brought up, but that is a core piece to me that I'm very excited about.
Trustee Oz.
And follow up to Trustee Greeley's comments is, looking at this, I went back and looked at our strategic plan. And if you look at goal 2, it is to provide educational opportunities. All students shall have equitable opportunities to access district programs and achieve success in these programs. And so you have to look at really what is equitable opportunities. And so in my mind, what that really means is everyone, or every student in this case, has an opportunity to succeed regardless of background. So currently 40% of our students are enrolled in kindergarten, whereas the 60% can simply do not have access based on where they live or the fact that they couldn't afford to go. So I think this promotes this goal And I think we should, in my opinion, we should move forward regardless of what the legislature does. Because there are great opportunities for success, as we've seen. There's no doubt that social and academic skills are improved because of full day kindergarten. Amy Adams brought out a point that I didn't think through, is that it's really important to have that teacher-student connection. And that is provided in a full day kindergarten atmosphere. And really, I think the big picture is it really provides an opportunity to change lives. And so these are the opportunities, not only for kindergarten, but will serve beyond kindergarten throughout the entire career of a student that could change lives forever. And so currently only 40% have that opportunity. So for this reason, I'm supportive of moving forward regardless of what the state legislature decides to do.
And just one clarification. So what you're requesting is to begin planning
Yes.
for this. So if it's my understanding is correct, then the trustees will have another chance to weigh in come budget time in May and June when we actually allocate the funds associated with the program.
President Wagers, you are correct. So you would just be giving us permission to move forward, and then you would approve it in the actual budget in the late spring.
Any other questions? Trustee Schmidt.
Thanks, President Wagers. I would just say, as you consider this, and as we consider moving forward with this, we have received feedback from parents and families who believe all-day kindergarten is too much for their children, or even one in particular. Their children were already older than the kindergarten age, but they felt like it was too much. So please make sure that in your planning, you have at least thought through what that would look like, so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of those families as well.
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, absolutely.
So with that, maybe Trustee Oppenheimer, I would entertain a motion from you because you work in this world, I think, a little bit. So maybe it should come from you.
So I move to.
That was a surprise, by the way.
Yeah, I don't even.
Sorry
know,
about that.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to say, so I'll make it up. I move to, I guess, allow the administration to continue to explore full day kindergarten proposal for the 22-23 school year.
I second that.
Second by Trustee Hawes. Any further discussion from trustees? I mean, just general discussion about the program?
I will say,
So what was that, Trustee Oppenheimer?
sorry. I also was looking at my notes, and Amy Adams, she referenced the math skills and how exciting that is for her to see some of the students' math skills. And I was just reading a study today by Dr. Steve Barnett, who is a very well-known early childhood researcher, and he was talking about how math skills are as much, if not more, of a predictor for success than even literacy skills. So it was fun to hear her talk about those early math skills. And as we're looking into like the STEM field for, a lot of our students moving forward for career, that, as they go into careers, it really is important. So it was fun to hear her say that.
Trustee Gregory.
President Wagers, just a comment that in all the time that I have served on the school board and gone to national conventions and been to workshops and classes that are focused on closing the gap, learning gap, which was what No Child Left Behind was all about, and the next iteration was all about. This has the potential to do closing the gap before the gap happens, or fixing the gap as it comes in. And the research that was often quoted was that if a child gets behind and has a less than stellar experience 2 years in a row, they will never catch up through their academic career. And so when we know that we have children who come to school unprepared to learn from various circumstances not within their control. And this can be galvanizing for them. And Amy Adams is just an example. I mean, I was there visiting her and she just couldn't stop talking about it. Once she knew that we were interested, she was going to give us the whole spiel right there. And you were saying, just wait for it, just wait for it. So, and those young minds are just so open and so eager. And I have to comment that I was a mom who wanted my kindergartners home half day. And yet the difference between my children and the generation that we have today is that they are exposed to so many things in our world in a solo or a digital format that lacks that teacher connection, that lacks that academic focus, that lacks the structure that helps them learn through play that's not on a single isolating device. And I'm excited for them because I personally think they're coming smarter and just kind of wired, ready to expand their minds more than ever before. And so I see this as a great step ahead for all kids. And that creates a synergy in a classroom that moves a group of kids forward down the line. And it's just pretty exciting. And I also have to remind us all that there are a significant number of districts across the state of Idaho who are already doing this with even with the same challenging socioeconomic characteristics that we have here. And when you're looking for a ticket to success, I think this is going to be one. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Trustee Langley.
I just want to reiterate what you said, Nancy, and so many of our trustees here tonight, that while we are in the middle of the pack of school districts who've already chosen to embrace this, we are excited to embrace it. I see that the state is going forward, and I really hope that we get there for the state. But I'm so glad that we're doing it now as we can, or we're considering doing it now. There's a lot of research that Trustee Oppenheimer can quote better than I can about the economic value to our state in the long term, for our students to be able to bridge that gap and become more educated at an earlier age and make transitions. And that economic value will be felt in all of our businesses for generations to come by these valuable changes we're making here. And we look at it now, we may be helping children receive more education, helping them be better cared for with free and reduced lunches that they have more available to them at breakfast and lunch. But additionally, we are changing the future for our state by making a move like this, which I'm just thrilled about.
I think when I first joined the board like 7 years ago, I know we were talking about kindergarten then. Yep. And we had workshop topics on it. How much does it cost? Why aren't we doing it? And now we're doing it. And I'm very excited to support this motion. I mean, it's been a lot of work, a lot of conversation, a lot of time, and some ways overdue, but we do it when we can do it. And this is when we can do it. And I'm excited to support this. Any other discussion? Without that, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of funding planning and to begin engaging kindergartners and kindergarten families with the Boise School District, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the administration. I know, this is a big lift and it's a big change and, a new thing. And thank you to the teachers that are willing to take that on as well, because this is a big deal and it will help our community in the future. Director Anderson.
Good evening.
You look very excited.
I'm super excited. Nothing like a little policy to really put the oomph in the meeting.
to some lovely policy revisions.
I do have to say though, if you have been down to the Saturday market, you know Josh Imara, the violin playing dancer.
Oh,
Yeah, he always busks right by the escalator. So yeah, he's a neat kid. So okay, on to really awesome stuff. This is before you are two policies up for second reading. And so when a policy comes to second reading, then it is an action item. I did not hear from anybody in terms of any changes or concerns you had about either of these. They do need to be adopted effective immediately because I think as we explained briefly before, this is mostly about compliance with expectations that have been laid out to us through statute or federal expectations. So do you have any questions for me?
I have one really in it. I should have asked you ahead of time, but
No, it's okay.
on the second one, it's policy 3232R.
Yes.
Don't we do with procedures? Don't we usually do a P? And
That's a very good question. They're all R's now in Assembly.
okay. I didn't.
Yep.
That's. Thank you for.
Yeah.
Yeah, President Wagers, it's actually a software issue for us. They won't allow us to use Ps. So that's
I have a lot of
why,
software
yeah,
issues.
software issue.
Mostly right here. Thank you. Trustee Gregory.
I just have a comment. I want to acknowledge the work that our attorney Dan Skinner has spent on this. And the work has been ongoing over a number of years. This is a predicament that school districts have been placed in for a significant amount of time and realize that we have been doing our due diligence in following the law, but bringing our policies up to date has been a real struggle because things have been continually shifting. And so, thankfully to Dan Skinner, we've been able to nail this down and get it done so that we can be in compliance, which is what we always strive to do. And it's all about, following the law and honoring and respecting student rights and in our schools and doing things the way we should do. And now we have it in policy, which should be reassuring to us. So it's always great it is exciting to pass a policy like this that brings us in compliance, that we can say we have it done.
Great. Any other questions for Director Anderson? Trustee Gregory?
And that being said, I would move approval of policy 3232 and policy 3232R as outlined in enclosures 25 and 26 effective immediately.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Trustee Greeley. Any discussion among trustees? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Anderson. With that, we'll move to board trustee and superintendent comments. Any comments?
One more comment.
Trustee Oppenheimer's got a comment.
Just one more, I promise. I was thinking about the full day kindergarten, and certainly we want to provide the options to families for half day if that's what they choose. But I was just thinking how great parent engagement will be in terms of like the kindergarten teachers being able to really engage the parents. Because when Amy was talking and has 46 children in 2 different classes, it's really, really hard to, connect with the families and the parents. And that's when families need that engagement the most. And so now just such a relief with our kindergarten teachers having the time with 23 children as opposed to 46, having that time to really welcome families into the school and help them. And, because families are nervous with kindergartners. And just being able to talk with them and reassure them and help them and support them. So it really is about the parents and the families as well, and not just about our children's success. It's not just about ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and all of that. that will come with the territory, but it really is about that family engagement and support. So I didn't want to leave without mentioning that.
Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, President Wagers. I don't know how many of you were able to access the open meeting law training that happened this past week or two. I can't remember exactly what day.
I think it was last Wednesday. I was on that call.
Right. And thanks to the Idaho Press and or the press organization and the Attorney General Lawrence Wasden, who puts that program together. And I thought it was really good. And I enjoyed the skits from the
that's because they were done by the Shakespeare Festival.
Right.
They were way better than the normal actors they get.
I thought it was great. And so I think that you can still see a recording of it if you missed it, and maybe Sharon can connect you if you have a desire. Yeah, and it comes in two parts. And so the thing was slated to be 2 hours long. The first hour was on open meeting law, and then they had a little break. And then I think the next section was a little bit shorter.
Yeah. And that was on public records requests.
Public records requests.
So really, I mean, the open meeting law applies more to us as trustees.
Right.
The public records requests a little more to our clerk and to our attorney.
Right.
But we also need to be aware of what public records, texts, emails, all those things are fair game.
Right. Right. And they just did a very good job of presenting it. And I think it's so valuable to know that. And we can also get copies of the booklet that you can always refer to help us keep it straight.
Did you enjoy your break, Superintendent Dennis?
President Wagers, we did. It was a nice break. We were back on duty last Thursday, so we've been here for the last couple of days, but it was a very nice break. Appreciate you asking. I would probably add one other thing to kind of get back to some of the stuff. The governor's state of the state today. He outlined some very aggressive educational agenda items for his administration. We'll see how that plays with the legislature over the next couple of months. I would like to say weeks, but I think it's going to be months. Just some highlights from that. He's requesting $104 million for salary increases for teachers, $47 million for literacy. And I think that's part of what we talked about with the all-day kindergarten. And then something that I think is flying under the radar in his request to the legislature is a 5% increase to our classified staff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that is a huge need that we're going to have to deal with one way or another. And I know this board's going to have the opportunity to look at some of this as we bring budget to you guys in the spring. But there's a huge need for us to address some of our classified salaries. So a 5% increase from the state would be a huge help. So just things for the board to be looking at as we enter this legislative session.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like infrastructure and education are his two heavy lifts. Good luck. Trustee Gregory.
Ooh, are you ready to entertain a motion?
I always like to entertain motions.
I move we adjourn.
Been moved by Trustee Gregory. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Terminator. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Any opposed? Everybody have a good evening. Thanks for being here.